Starting to let people in. Welcome, welcome. We're letting folks trickle in here. All right, I'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. We're so excited to be here. My name is Courtney Hale, Executive Director and co-founder of Race Matters, an organization here in San Luis Obispo. And this is our final laboratory series 11. This has been our series in collaboration with the Harold J. Millay Art Gallery in San Luis Obispo. We are so excited to be here today with Alisa Sikelianos-Carter and Nicola Lee, who will be guiding us through Alisa's artwork today. And I do want to acknowledge that the Millay Gallery at Cuesta College is located on traditional lands of the coastal band of the Chumash Nation, including the Obispeño, members of the Chumash language family, and other Native peoples, past and present, who've made their homes along the west coast of Central California. Since we've gathered digitally, we invite you to also honor the Indigenous peoples whose land you are on physically gathered on in the chat. So if you'd like to go ahead and put that in the chat. Race Matters, who are we? So we're a local organization and we amplify matters of racial justice and Black voices through artistic, historical, educational, cultural, and social experiences and collaborations like this one. So I'm going to hand it off to Nicola. Thank you so much. We are excited about the program today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Courtney. My name is Nicola Lee. I am a current graduate student at CSULB Long Beach. I'm into sculpture. I went to Cuesta College and I am the moderator today. I'm introducing Alisa Sikelianos-Carter, who is a mixed media painter from upstate New York. She has been awarded residencies at the Fountainhead Residency, the Millay Colony for the Arts, I have a hard time saying this one. NXTHVN, Vermont Studio Center, and the Wassaic Project, and Yaddo. Her upcoming exhibition include group shows at James Cohan Gallery, New York, and the Kavi Gupta Gallery, Chicago, in Illinois, and Friedman Gallery, Beacon in New York. She also has I believe you have a show opening right now in London at the it's awesome. At the Kristin Gallery. And so she earned her BA and MA from SUNY in Albany in painting and drawing. Sikelianos-Carter asserts that Black features are a manifestation of a sacred and divine technology that has served as a means of survival, both physically and metaphysically. She envisions a cosmically bountiful world that celebrates and pays homage to the ancestral majesty, power, and aesthetics. Inspired by traditionally Black hairstyle, Sikelianos-Carter uses web and catalog sourced images to construct new archetypes. Through her exploration of opulent, luminescent material, she's creating a mythology that is centered on Black resistance and utilizes the body as a strait of alchemy and divinity. And with further ado, Alisa, would you like to take it away?
Thank you, Nicola. Thank you so much for having me here, and thank you to Race Matters and to Courtney and to everyone. So I'm going to share my screen with you, and You can see that, yeah?
Yes, that's perfect.
Great, thank you. Okay, great. So I'll close this. I started this project thinking about imagining our hair as Black people, our hair sort of gaining a mind of its own and growing into our bodies, like this sort of organic or biological technology or adaptation as a result of like a response to racism. So I was thinking specifically about instances for Black people within the workplace or schools or sports teams where we are have been dismissed, fired, suspended because of our natural hair, the way it grows out of our heads. And so I started to think about like what would happen if our bodies responded and just became like even more sort of distracting or offensive. Obviously, I only think our hair is like magnificent, but imagining like what sort of white supremacy, how white supremacy would react to that. And so these are images that I've used in my collages. And I cut these images out and then I scan them, or I maybe digitally assemble them, and then I create these sort of like palettes, and then I cut them up and hand cut them into these analog collage pieces. And then I scan those and I scale them up and I print them. So these are examples of those, the sort of mothers, if you will, of the crowns, which are what they become. So these are the crowns. And these are the fully realized images of that process of this sort of mutation or divine technology, sacred adaptation, a way for us to survive this world and to revolt against white supremacy. So I print these out and then I adorn them. You can see like this glitter. This is all glitter in between the different images. And when I'm making them, I'm just thinking about, I mean, really I initially was thinking about monsters, like these beautiful monsters that I wanted to create, or these gods or aliens. And so I'm thinking about power, and often they're sort of reactionary. It could be something I heard in the news. It could be my own personal experience or something I witnessed. But I want to create a being that is all powerful and like a protector. That's what I'm imagining. And so when I created these crowns, and then I started to think about sort of where they came from. And so I called them the final sort of images, future ancestors, and you'll see those in a bit. But I imagine that these beings who are from the now time, right? We adapt and we evolve, and then we like go into the future and leave this planet. And live in a world where we are safe and empowered, and we can rest and we can have joy, and we're surrounded by beauty. And so I really wanted to think about like adornment and glamour and the power of glamour and glamour magic, and really just a way to elevate what is already really gorgeous, like these styles and this these patterns and the color and the abstraction. I wanted to accentuate that. So that's like where the glitter came into play. And I use other materials like micaceous iron oxide, abalone shell. So it's not all just glitter. It's also like materials, like more natural materials. So this is one example. This is a larger crown. It's sort of, so those previous images are really heads of beings, and you'll see they belong to bodies, but this is Afrocosmos, and it will be one of many. And it's its own sort of planetary body or world or galaxy. So this is just like the beginning of that, but this is something that won't have a body and it just exists on its own. so I thought about these beings and these future ancestors, and then going into this future, we've had to leave to survive. And I wanted to, I imagined like what they would look like physically, what their world would be like. So when I started to think about it, I imagined just like abundance and this sort of like just gold, like these gold celestial flowers, like growing everywhere, or constellations, and like this patterning across our bodies, like protective, sort of like this built-in armor on our bodies that keeps us safe. And so this like different adornment is all just related to that. And so, and these two specific pieces actually, so this came second, but we could be related, you know who you are. So in that title, like this being, this future ancestor is talking to this one who came first. We are the ones we've been waiting for. And so I love this idea of like pieces crossing literal time. Like I made this in 2017, and I made the first one this year, but, and speaking to each other. And also I wanted to just, like there wasn't like a narrative here necessarily. It was just thinking about what these beings, like how they stood, just like a portrait, a family portrait, that like one, like someone even beyond in the further into the future might have. And so I just wanted to like just portray them feeling comfortable and beautiful and honoring them. So this is another piece that, again, I was just really playing with materials and wanting to display these beings as just like casual, not necessarily always having to be like activated, but really just feeling comfortable. And this is also where these, so there's like kind of two, maybe three now beings that exist in this world. There's the future ancestors, and then there's the Afronauts. And in my narrative, the Afronauts came even earlier. So the Afronauts like came, like if we're the midpoint, this now time where we exist, the Afronauts came earlier, excuse me, and yes, and then the future ancestors are further into the future. So the Afronauts are like the OGs, like they've been doing this. They already like, they recognized they needed to adapt, and they're like, okay, we're gonna, you know, we need to survive this. Sorry, and so they started quite early. And in my narrative, then creating this mythology, really in the Middle Passage is when they sort of were born, during the Middle Passage, which I'll get to later. So this is just like where they are introduced, and they're just existing together, the future ancestor and the Afronaut. This is a newer piece, and this was like the third, maybe the third being that exists in this world. They just kind of, you know, come when they do. And so I'm not trying to like develop new, I don't know if species is the right word, but I just allow it to, you know, birth when it needs to. And so this is another kind of being. I don't know their name yet, but, or what I would label them, but still hair-based, obviously, but they exist in like an underwater world. And so I think like there's beings who are maybe in like what is like the moon, like existing on the moon, and then there's some that have like gone to a like completely different galaxy, but this being is definitely like one of the originals, and is from the ocean. And in this one, and I'll show you examples of some other pieces a little bit later, but I see this being as sort of like almost like a sea witch. That's not the best description, but they are sort of ushering the Afronauts that I referenced like into this new world of safety, and they are sort of like the protectors of that, of these beings who are now evolving for survival. So I'll show you, it will make more sense. But this is another older piece that return to Earth. And I just loved thinking about sort of like these beings coming from the future ancestors, and then like coming back to Earth to kind of just like see what's happening, to see like through time and space, like returning just to check it out. And really just like, you know, sometimes a piece just comes out of me just like imagining one scene and then building a narrative. So it's like they've been like kind of beamed down through a portal onto Earth, and they're just returning to see what's happening. Like, are things still terrible? Yeah, they are. So they're like, cool, we're gonna go, we're leaving, we're returning back to where we came from. And so in a lot of my pieces, I wasn't thinking about, I mean, I just described like a tiny narrative, but sort of the longer story, I just was thinking about that moment. And with this piece, with Listen and Behold, the storytelling, it was the first time where I started to imagine a larger story. And this is sort of the creation myth, and where this is one God, right, sort of explaining why we had to leave and why we had to for our survival. And they're sort of like, come and listen and sit and let me tell you what happened. And so I imagine like these astronauts as the angels to this God, if you will, and then this sort of messaging is the story. So and these symbols are I'll show you, actually, it's just easier. So if you can see the silver foil throughout this piece, those were me just organically making shapes within the paintings. And so after a while, I started to see sort of like significant symbols. You can see it here too. So like this one it just felt important to me for whatever reason. And this one, and so I sort of like isolated them and took them out and felt like they were significant enough to and worth repeating. So they became my own sort of alphabet or symbols, or sigils or hieroglyphics. They like their language. So that's something that not the viewer doesn't necessarily recognize, but I do. And so it's like important that I'm like including these shapes, and they're like imbuing kind of like magic into the piece and imbuing stories. So if, let's say you were like, we're into the future and you, for whatever reason, you studied these beings and you know how to read this, like you would know, you know, like you could see and sort of decode or translate what this story was. And then this patterning around the figure is also, it's like the life force. This being is explaining that like this sort of world developed out of their body. It's like of their body, and they this magic and this power came from them. So they're not like they're the one true God, but really there's like a bunch of one true gods. And this is a detail because it's sort of difficult to see of that patterning that Mark making. That's like could be hair, it's life force, it's energy. It represents a lot of different. It represents whatever I want. Anytime I like to just like subscribe meaning to everything, like, and switch it out. So in this painting, it is the life force. This is really like the sort of narrative to the first image we just saw, or to the image we just saw of the three-headed being. So this is like, if you can imagine, these are like the seeds of that being, and then like the body, this black is that body, it's like their central figure's body, and then they like fuse together and they grow out of that. And then this gold sort of like, and the gold around it breaks up and becomes the entire scene. So I did not make them thinking any of that. Like I made this first, and then the other piece came in. And even for a while, I didn't really see them related, but then I started to recognize the similarities and like how they made sense together. So that's how they are married. This is another piece. So you can see like this is an example of a crown. It's not, I often mirror the crowns and they're, you know, symmetrical, but this is asymmetrical and they can be similar to Afrocosmos, like a planetary body, an alien, its own sort of god. And so that was like, just again, like experimentation with material and thinking about how these, the crowns could fit in different ways. And this was also where I started to think about the ocean and the sky. So I'm very much obsessed with just the night sky, really, or the sky at any point, but of day, but especially the stars and the cosmos, and thinking about just how amazing and infinite and expansive it is. And so this was where I started to imagine, like, what if the ocean and the sky sort of met, and also thinking about like the way that we pay reverence and like imagine our ancestors in the sky. Often, not everyone, but lots of people do that, and thinking about heaven and, you know, above. And then for people of the African diaspora, like we also have that same sort of experience with the ocean because of our ancestors who died during the Middle Passage and who were during like the forced suicides and escaping enslavement. And so instead of going to be enslaved, they jumped off or were forced to jump off. And so thinking about the ocean being this place where we also can pay reverence and honor our ancestors. And so that's where these pieces, these smaller pieces, came to be, where I was imagining that exact moment when these beings jumped or were pushed off the ship and sort of their bodies transforming into these mer people, and then the world that came out of that, this new world where they could exist and live. And so like, instead of imagining what actually happened, which is horrific, like imagining this new underwater world where they have survived. So as far as like time and the way that I think about time, like this is like a split timeline. So we like know it actually happened, and now parallel to our reality, this world is like existing along with that. And so like these, like I imagine like chains becoming abalone, becoming these like rings of like abalone shell or silver, and like propelling them and allowing them to swim in the water, and then, or also being portals that like transport them into this safe space. And then again, this like patterning that you've seen throughout, like this like magic that also is like, it's also like my own hand, you know, interpretation, as opposed to like the photographed imagery of hair that I use normally. This is like my own hand and like interpretation of hair. So like this like magic and sort of power imagery surrounding them and transforming them. And this is again another example of that. That dance or movement down to the ocean. And so when I referred to that sea witch in Meet Me on the Other Side, which was the black double figure with the sort of like dreadlocks and coral on their body, that compared to these beings, that's like a giantess, like they're huge, and there's like, I'm imagining them coming and sort of, and I say them for two reasons, because of they actually are two bodies together, but also because in this case, I'm not like gendering them within the binary. And so I imagine them like ushering them, like lovingly bringing them into this world, and like almost catching them and bringing them down to this world. Because like you imagine they're confused and they like don't know what's happening, and then that sea witch is there. and has always been there. And this is another example of that. Also, the title, it's not totally scientifically accurate, but I did hear this, I don't know, TikTok or something about this ocean, like towards the core of the earth, where they found diamonds that had water in them. And so they knew that the diamonds were from that part of the earth because of the pressure and the minerals that were in it. It blew my mind. But so I loved thinking about this place, like an even more hidden place that we don't know about, you know, like below, where there's like even more sort of like secrecy and safety, where these beings could exist. So like maybe they live there. So that was where that came from. I love little tidbits of like science knowledge like that, and then just like somehow getting them into the painting in some way. So this piece is also part of that. All those blue pieces are black into blue, and that has to do with the process, like the literal material process, but also thinking about Black people being in the blue ocean, thinking about Black and blue, thinking about the blues, thinking about Blackness. So there's all these different things I'm thinking. So this is another piece that is also referencing that and those bodies and beings in the ocean, and this like interconnectedness of ancestors and remembrance and reverence, and just making sure to, and so like more recent ancestors, more recent, in the last year deaths, and then obviously like older ancestors, but just thinking about like to like never let them go, and to continue to make and to fight and to think and to love, like think about and love them. Yeah, so that is that sort of this, like I just said, like this ongoing spiral of these beings and these bodies together with this like magic and this mica, this black and pearl mica kind of being embedded in them. And so that was like, that piece is where I started this other process too. So like a lot of this has happened in like just the last year, where I started to integrate, well, first of all, like there's no figure and it's like completely abstract, but integrating like this black and pearl mica into the pieces, and really thinking more about texture, and like imagining like maybe it's like an abstraction on hair, on like the afro, or it's like the bottom of the ocean where these bodies have kind of broken down and become a part of the energy and the earth. So all of these are also me just like kind of riffing on that, and you can barely see it, but there's like these symbols that I was referencing in the and in this piece too, just kind of embedded. So in these pieces, I think of them more as like maybe bodies of land, or yeah, like it's like a map. Maybe this is a map of a place like that, you know, like in the cosmos. But I really love this because I got to like just work material and not think about the body in this, like the way I had been traditionally. And then I started thinking about like, what do these beings have? Do they have shields? Do they have like, do they need to be protected? Can they protect themselves without objects? Are these relics? Are these things that we find even further in the future that exist in this world? And it's a way that we to understand them. So, and again, these symbols are here. You can see them like the relief of those symbols on the surface of these panels. And then these are kind of more isolated symbols that just like little portraits of them, which I really love, of these. I see them as like bodies of land, really, but just a way to think about the shapes and their meaning. And as you can see, like I'm really obsessive about material and like luminescent material. So this was like another sort of riff on that, and thinking about like, I imagine like you're kind of flying away in a ship and seeing this planet from that perspective of like, or passing by. So this is like just an image of a planet in this world, and it's somebody's home. And to me, it's like very cold and like the moon or something, or like I don't know, just like cozy and beautiful. So that's like weird stuff that I'm thinking about when I'm creating these worlds, or these images. It's just like, what does it feel like? Do I want to be there? And does it feel good to me? That's like a lot of where I'm operating from. This is sort of the last series that I'm like working on, which is the Look at Me series. And these images are black on black and sometimes blue, paint on gouache, acrylic paint on gouache. And these are some details it's a little bit challenging to see, but I'm definitely thinking about these as hair, of like what my hair looks like. My hair comes out and I see it, and I see this like sort of just the hair doing what it wants. Like, what is it doing? So that's like where I started to think about, that's where these images sort of came from. But then also conceptually, I was thinking about an instructor who referenced a show that she saw by Kara James Marshall, where she didn't, it was the first time she was a white woman, it was the first time she ever looked at Black people, which is wild because their paintings, first of all, they're not actual Black people, but also it's just intense to say and racist. But so anyway, she said that, and it was the first time she was actually made to sort of think about what Black people look like and the variation in our faces and our features. And she, it was very impactful on me. And so I started to think about these, I call them illustrated spells, where the paintings are sort of forcing you to look closer. So when you see them in person, you can't really see the contrast in the paint. And so you have to get very close and you have to become very intimate with these pieces in order to see the variations of Blackness and like the depth, and the glitter is all different. It's not the same Black glitter. And so you have to interact and engage with them on a very intimate level to know them. And so I imagine them being these spells that like draw you in and like command that you see them and demand that you recognize them and really understand them. And also I imagine the beings in my world sort of speaking these spells. So every time they speak, they're like, you have to see me, you have to really, really recognize me and see me for me, and not just sort of like, be oblivious to my, like me as an individual, I guess. So there's a lot in these three materials that I'm using, but that's what I'm imagining. And this is another sort of the same illustrated spells, but with these beings who are sort of mer people and made of this spell work. And then lastly, these are just the symbols that I was talking about that I had isolated, so you can see them. This is like just mirrored, so this is one group, this is the same group beneath, and you can see them without all the material. And that's what they look like. So it's like a little alphabet. Okay, let me see, stop share. Okay, and that's my work.
Yay, wonderful. That was very exciting. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yes, of course.
I wanted to remind you to, maybe you could offer us your social media handles in the chat, if that was.
Oh, sure.
That would be fabulous. And for the audience, we would love your questions. So please post your questions in the chat so we can definitely ask Alisa your questions. Okay. So I have a bunch of questions here for you. Exciting, they're coming in. They are in no particular order. So is your methodological system informed by any pre-existent religious mythological storytelling?
No, I didn't. So, I mean, I didn't get to study Greek mythology in 6th grade. I wasn't the kid who got to do that, which I have in the back of my mind. I was always mad about. I didn't get picked for that. And I didn't, I mean, I was into like, I didn't even like Egyptian mythologies. I mean, really, I think my sort of, I didn't grow up religious. I don't have, like, I couldn't tell you what the Bible says. I don't know anything. So it's a lot of it is just like, you know, me sort of, I mean, I'm not to necessarily say that's a myth, but I'm just saying, but like, so a lot of it is just like a mishmash of things that I've heard or seen. But I would say like the idea, I mean, I'm influenced by science fiction, obviously, and fantasy. So like this idea that we like mutate and are like to survive is something that I just, you know, glean from what I've watched or read or something. But I think when I'm thinking about stories, I'm not taking it from really anywhere else. It's just coming from my own, what I want to happen or what I like imagine.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Next question, is there some meaning around the absence of masculinity in the crowns?
Oh yeah, I wouldn't say there is an absence of masculinity. I definitely am not, that's not like a statement that I'm making. I don't, people will assume that it's like female or a woman, and that's not necessarily true either at all. Within that, like the literal images I'm using, I use images of men and women. And I mean, I'm assuming, I don't know them, so I don't know how they identify or who they are, but I'm not using only like women's hairstyles or what we would see as traditionally women's hairstyles. And also in the figures, I'm using, I mean, really, I'm just using my partner, myself. I'd love to say I'm using all kinds of bodies. At some point I will, but I'm really just using what's like available and easy, I have access to. But I'm not, I don't think of it as like necessarily feminine or like female. Yeah, so it's like, I guess that's just like, it's like how the viewer, I guess, reads it. Because I think like, I am seeing it as like femme, but like in, because I am femme, but and so like, obviously that's like coming out in the work, but I wouldn't say that like, that's not there, the masculinity, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. As a matter of fact, I wanted to bring attention to the Crown Bill that inspired.
Right.
Right. So last 2019, I believe it was. So what are we, 21? So almost 2 years ago, the Crown Bill was passed in California, which is the first state to pass the bill making Black hairstyles protected under the city's existing anti-discrimination laws, because policing Black hair is a form of pervasive racism and bias. So right. How do you see, like, how do you feel about that bill being passed? And does this inspire your work in some kind of critical race theory?
Yeah, I mean, the like when I was talking about like the kind of when I started doing it, which was maybe 2015, it was, I mean, I started making the crowns, which looked very different before, the year that Michael Brown was murdered. And I can't remember in my like old brain what year that was, but so that was like just pure rage, right? That just came out of like pure, I wanted to create a monster or a god who could destroy racism, or honestly racists, you know, that's what I was imagining. But then I also was very aware of Black people being discriminated against, and like our hair being distracting, exotic, unprofessional, whatever else. And so that was, I mean, I was like, I want, what is sort of like one of the most, what's a power symbol? I mean, there's so many things, but like within Blackness, like hair is so powerful. It's so loaded. And there's like such a legacy and like tradition within like our relationship to hair. And so I wanted to, so I was directly thinking about that. And really, like, if that person, whoever they are in that workplace, was being told they needed to change, what if they were just like, and their hair just took over their face, you know, in that moment, and then they like grew to like, you know, a bit larger than life, like 9 feet tall. Like that's what I was like imagining in real time, that transformation happening. And then like later came the idea of this like further in the future, and or there was a moment when that happened across like the world, and then they all left and were like pieced out and created their own world. So that's what so it's directly related to that. And I remember being like, oh, there's like, this is going to keep happening. Like unfortunately there's so much material because this is still like in South Africa, this is happening in California, this, you know, at the time, different, just everywhere where Black people were experiencing this kind of racism. And so, I mean, I think it's really amazing that it's recognized and has been challenged and is changing. And I absolutely want that, because I would love, I mean, I'll keep making the work, but I would love for there not to be a reason to do that, to make the work, you know, like it would have obviously been better for everyone if the work didn't need to exist, I guess, you know, like if the world was different, that would be better. I don't know what I would be doing. I'd be doing something different, but yeah, so it's directly related to that.
I mean, I feel like this conversation is centuries going on, because you mentioned South Africa, and their method of determining Black, colored, or white was quite interesting, you know.
Right.
And then you come to the United States and they had their own way of determining.
Right.
So I think this is very poignant work.
Yeah, thank you.
So the next question is there a significance to the two-bodied beings?
The two what?
Two-bodied beings. So like you have some of the paintings, like, yes.
Oh, the figure with the bottom, like top and bottom. Is there a significance to that? Yeah, I think I'm imagining also, so there's like a lot of things happening. I will say one thing, and then there's like a bunch of other things happening in the piece. But so that piece is you're talking the black and blue piece with the double, I'm imagining. So I hope that's what you're asking.
I'm thinking of that one in my own mind. I'm thinking of where you have the two figures, or the person on the ground with their legs.
Oh, that piece. Okay.
Well, I'm thinking of it in a regard of just two figures.
Yeah, I'll talk about both briefly. But so the first one, what is it called? Oh, Afronauts and Ancestors, where there's a figure and they're like kind of spread eagle and sitting down, and then there's another future ancestor, like an Afronaut on the ground and a future ancestor standing up. So that one, I just love the idea of, I don't know, like just someone just like being just like spreading, just feeling really comfortable with their body, and like not feeling just being like unbothered and casual. I think it said that. And then and the other figure is kind of like, what is it, you know, like off center or whatever the you know description is.
The contrapposto, yeah.
Yes, thank you. And so I was like, oh, I just love this idea where they're like not just like existing, just like you could easily maybe see a photograph, a very candid photograph of like us now like that, but this is like in a different world where like we've evolved and we're like look totally wild and like alien gods. And so I just wanted to create like this image of that, but with like this new you know. And then the black blue one, the Meet Me on the Other Side, that's like this figure with these like dreads that have like, which is also sort of this like underwater like rock formation, and then this coral body, and the bottom figure, it's like the head is going into the ground with like coral going down. And so that is Meet Me on the Other Side. So I'm imagining like these two beings actually are like crossing over, right, and like talking to each other. I like the idea of like all the figures, the beings sort of talking in conversation. And so they're like telling each other to like kind of I'll meet you there, but they're also talking to those Afronauts who are like falling into the water, or like this dance. And they're telling them to like come meet us here, because like you will find safety, like you will be protected. So that I hope I answered their question, but that's what was happening.
I feel like you did. I think that was good. So there's two questions that I feel they're related. So I'll start with this one. Your backgrounds are beautiful as well. How do you approach the creation of the background in images? And then the next question is, you reference the importance of the color black and blue. Does every color choice that you make have as much meaning?
Yeah, so the backgrounds, I love making them, and I'm becoming sort of more recognizing how they're really important. I think in the beginning I was just like, let me just slap something up. I just didn't know what I was doing. I just was trying things out. And so now I'm a lot more intentional, but also I like to be loose. So like you can see like there's like often I like it's a wash, right? Like a very like loose wash, like I'm into that. And then things sort of being more structured and like more detailed, like the contrast of those many things or elements. And so, and then when I'm thinking about it, like I'm really wanting to think about or create like richness, like this abundant world where like everything that we need is there, like all the materials, all the like minerals, all the everything is just around us. Like it's so overwhelmed with abundance that's like floating around us. And like what is like I want it to feel atmospheric, I want it to feel rich. Like what does that world look like? So like maybe it's like there's pink gas everywhere and it's glittery and I don't know why, it's just this world that we exist in. And or there's like I said, like this sort of like iron glitter mist and then these like gold chunky flowers that are like filled with another kind of gold, whatever. So I'm a maximalist, obviously, in my material choices. And so I just like want more. That is, while also like playing with like, you know, like with the black, it's very minimal, even though I use glitter within those images. I just love that like interplay. And with color, yeah, I'm intentional. I mean, I think like a lot like that. I don't know if you remember, there's like the three-headed figure with the two Afro-knot angels on the sides, and then there was like the patterning around their bodies, and they showed a detail of that, like that every mark, so that's all like painted on. And so every color, like I mixed all of those, so I use like a lot of like powdered pigments like interference and pearlescence, and then I mix them with acrylic mediums to create it. So some of them are like already mixed, but like the majority of them I mixed every single one. And it's like it's like going on feeling, right? Like it's intentional in that I am putting intention and work into it, but but like the goal, the kind of light that I'm aiming towards is like just like the feeling of like magic and like what like the amount of times that I went over those colors and like was like, oh, this isn't good. Like no one ever would notice, you know, no one would know. But I was like, oh no, I don't like it. And so I would like paint it over the black and then redo it. So it is very intentional and like kind of intense, but and that's true. Yeah, it's just like about feeling like where does this like brown figure, like they're existing in this iron mineral place, and like green, and there's a lot of green and purples that I use, and that feels very like otherworldly. So like whatever. I'm imagining like what the other world looks like. That's a lot of different things.
Very good. Our next question is, do you have a zoomed in image of a piece of the planet and or relic? Look at me. We can see perhaps in more detail.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I can show you that. I got kind of nervous about time, so I started going faster. Let me,
and we have two more, so you're good on time.
Okay, so I'm just going to, what am I doing? This, okay. And then I'm going to share screen. And then I'm gonna go to view, present. Okay, so this, okay. So this is like the Look at Me series, like the patterning, the mark making. So this is like an acrylic wash, which in person looks like velvet. It's very beautiful. And then this mark making, which is another like high flow. I like giving the details of what it is, just because I think I like that and I want to know. This high flow acrylic that is obviously more glossy on top, and then these different glitters. So there's like a more matte glitter, which sounds impossible, but it's true. And then there's like with bigger grits, and so it really changes like depending on the light and where you're looking at it. And then, oh, I guess, no, sorry. Sort of non-traditional, but I like that that person asked that. Oh, and so these are hard to see, I acknowledge. This is, I think, this isn't a piece of a planet, but it's the same detail process. What you can't see, like there's so much texture, right? It's very, if you touch, it's like very rough. And this is like relief, these symbols coming out of the piece. So that's like the bigger, and then this is 1 foot by 1 foot. The large one's 4 feet by 4 feet. But all of this is like, it's like kind of smoother pearl mica or black mica actually. And then these are like these, like, I mean, it's not scarification. It feels like I'm like building a world. Like I'm actually like the way that I'm applying material, excuse me, feels very, I don't know. It's different than the way I make other work. That is that, yeah.
Yeah, it's very intentional the way you're
Yeah.
using the mediums, and
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I almost feel like you're building worlds in a two-dimensional way, but
Yeah.
they do come off in more of a three-dimensional way, especially
Yeah.
that last one you just showed.
Yeah, like the way that even on like the paintings that you're saying, like the way I'm like layering material, and it's like maybe you don't know, like it's like first it's an ink wash, and then it's a pearlescent, and then it's foil, and then it's glitter, and then whatever. So I like that's really important, and I like the way it feels, like it's very tactile, and it's good.
Okay. What exhibitions do you have planned, and where is this work? Where can this work be seen in person? There's also another one that follows that up, which says, is there a specific gallery that represents you where your work can be purchased?
No gallery representation yet. And I'm going to have, if you're local to, which maybe I forget that we're talking California, I'm in Albany, New York. And so I have work in a show coming up at Union College where you'll be able to see not all of this, but a lot of it. There's also a show in Chicago and a show in New York. So basically the East Coast or Midwest. But if you go to my website, I think that I updated the, I think I added a page that was like exhibition, so it will have that stuff there. I can't guarantee that it won't all be in the same place. So there'll be different things, but there'll be something somewhere that you can see it. And then if with purchasing, you just contact me directly. Yeah.
Okay. And I think we have our last two questions. They are, is there anything that you want to share about the evolution of your practice from your training to the present for the students in attendance?
Yes, I love that question. Couple things. When I started making the work, so the crowns, like I feel like they're very now like technically really exquisite. In the beginning, they were terrible. And I didn't know anything about like how to find images that weren't pixelated. I didn't know about sizing images. I knew nothing. I didn't know how to use Photoshop, and they were cool and they're weird. They definitely, it was like I was on something, but I did not know anything. So I would say like that is to say, not to sound cheesy, like just keep going, just keep pushing it, and the idea, like it was totally weird and nothing's too weird. Do the weirdest thing you can think of and just keep like going until it looks the way you want it to look. Like I was like, oh, this is not, I mean, I accepted it at the time. I was like, this is fine. But and then once I got it, I was like, oh, that's what it's supposed to look like. Okay, great. And it clicks and you understand that and you're like, okay, I'm glad that I didn't like just give up. So definitely be as weird as you want and keep going. What else? I think that I've had like different people sort of, I mean, you know, I'm very stubborn in material, like in general, and also like a lot of people telling me to, like I work on paper. I recently switched to linen for the larger pieces, because it's a lot easier to work with as far as like durability, paper is very vulnerable. So I would say maybe be open to, even don't like do what other people say, but just be open to and really think about like why people are suggesting certain things, because it took me like about 4 years to get to where I am as far as material and being like, oh, I should actually not be working on paper. At that scale, it's bananas. It's so hard to work with. It's great, but it's just, it's terrifying to take it down. It gets holes in it, whatever, all the things that you can imagine. So it just took me a very long time to come around. And so I wish I had kind of listened earlier and not just been like, whatever. But also don't like do what you want to do, but just think about like why, really weigh the pros and cons of it. I think, yeah, I mean, I'll probably think of more things, but I think that's like
great advice.
Yeah.
Very good advice. I like how your work and stories evolve by influencing one another. Is that how you see it is becoming? Is that how you see it is becoming?
That the work is kind of like riffing off of one another?
Yeah.
I do. I definitely do. Like I definitely will make a piece like that. Those two kind of similar palettes, like the micaceous iron oxide, which is like the purpley brown ground with the gold floating around. And they're made years apart, but I'm really in love with that palette. Like speaking of backgrounds, like the gold and micaceous iron oxide, like I want to paint a wall in my house that, because it's just so beautiful. Anyway, like those two, I want to make more of those. Like those really, I feel very connected to those pieces. And so I want to kind of create a larger family within that. And then like the sort of three-headed figure with the three, I call them seeds of like the braid crowns, the literal crowns, or rosette, if you will. And so like those started to kind of talk to each other. So it's like I don't have to do, it's great because it's like the story starts to just kind of create itself. And then I just like follow it and see what it's telling me to do or say or whatever.
Excellent. I believe that was our last question. Let's see here. There's one. What do you do if you ever get into a headspace where you realize you are creating with the viewers in mind rather than sticking to your own vision?
Yeah, I don't like to do that. I've done it and I hate it. So I really often when I do that, it ends up being terrible. Like I have a specific piece of mine, which it was a small piece. It wasn't huge, but I spent all day and I was like, this would be so good. People are gonna think this is so great. And then I made it. I was like, ooh, that's terrible. It was like terrible looking. And I really try not to do that. I won't pretend that like when I'm making something and I know it's good, I'm not like, oh, this is good. People are gonna know this is good. Like I definitely, that happens, but that's not like the majority of the time when I'm thinking. And I really just try, I just try to like follow myself, which sounds so odd, but someone asked me a question recently of how I feel in the studio. And it's like, I'm following my like more knowing self into the work. So like she's holding my hand and kind of bringing me, and that's like who I'm listening to is like the other me who's like, oh, this is what you have to do. I'm like, okay, intuition, me, her, whatever, let's do it. And so that is, oh yeah, students, follow your intuition, really listen to it. Big deal. Really important because it will really have your back. But sometimes the thing will be whack, but most of the time it'll be great. But yeah, so that is like me. I really just try to like, what is Alisa thinking? What is she like, what is she feeling about the work, and trying to tune out other people. Because it doesn't, for me, it doesn't work. I mean, for some people that's great, but yeah, I just like try to get out of it.
Excellent. I think that's so important to follow your intuition. So that's great advice. And I guess I'll ask you one of my questions, Lois.
Yeah.
So the residency that you just finished, like how do you feel residencies impact an artist's career, and which of the residencies do you feel help propel your career further in a significant way?
So in general, I think residencies are so great. They all can do different things. I think that like for every residency that I've been to, it's always like the work changes in a really great way. Just because of like the people I'm around or like the environment. And it's not even like I'm like painting the landscape or something. It's not like that. It's just like I'm just the experience. I'm just like, it's changing how I think about things and conversations or whatever influence it. So it's always, it just feels very good to go and be like, okay, cool. I've like leveled up. Like going to residencies like me leveling up my work and practice and kind of confidence and trust in myself as an artist. I think I'm the kind of person who prefers a less showy residency. Like I really like to go into a hole and make work, but that's not going to necessarily advance your career. So I think you have to have all different experiences. But that's where I've like been the most excited. So like Yaddo is one of those, which is here in upstate New York, where you can just go and like they let you for like the whole day. No one bothers you. You're like not allowed to go talk to people. You're just like working, and I love that. And then you can interact in the evenings or whatever, as to whatever sort of extent you want to. Where I just was at NXTHVN, it was like a more sort of outward facing experience where you're connecting with collectors and gallerists and museum, blah, 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 whatever. And that was really helpful because I absolutely would never have had the experience here. And I'm not like I'm not good at self-promotion. I'm not, that's not my strength. And so it made me get more comfortable talking about my work and having to like present it and be like, this is my story. Here's the narrative. This is how, like, who I am as an artist. So that was really good. And then it made me more comfortable interacting with people about my work in a more, I talk to my friends and family about my work, but like in a kind of more unfamiliar or like whatever, way, in professional way, I guess. So, but I really recommend applying to residencies, and I have been rejected so many times. Like I have like a pretty robust routine of applying to residencies, but and I've been very fortunate to get into like a handful that have been really helpful. But even if you don't, if you don't get in, like keep applying, because you will eventually get in, or like that one isn't for you. It's like whatever. I haven't gotten to several that I still am like, darn it, but I will someday, maybe not. But yeah, so I think they're good for all different reasons. And when you're like looking, it's like, okay, well, kind of think about like where it is. Like I prefer ones that are like in the country, and like it's like quiet, and I can kind of go into a art hole. But like maybe you want to be in a city and you want that like interaction. So like thinking about that is important. And then like what they kind of want from you and what they're offering. I really recommend trying to get to one where they feed you and it's free. That is like, don't pay for stuff. If you have to, if you really want that residency, maybe do a fundraiser. But if you can help it, like do not pay for it and get fed, because that is like amazing. It's like what we need as artists.
Yeah, being fed is important.
Yeah, like just I go hours and I'm like, oh my God, I haven't eaten anything and I have a headache and now I'm like mad. So it's really lovely when you can like, thank you, Barley. Bye. Sorry, that's my friend.
Awesome. Okay, and then I think this is important because it's like the professional side of being an artist. And so considering the climate that we're in right now with the decessioning and decolonizing the art institution, who do you see, or where do you see your target market or collector, and what does that look like for you?
So this is like my first year of like really being like introduced to like collectors, like with a capital C. Like I have sold my art before, but I had never experienced like that energy of like, you have $3,000 to drop right now, or more, like that was really a different experience. And so I don't know. I mean, it's so intense. The art world is so bananas. Like my target market, I don't even know. I mean, my target market is like, first of all, please don't put my work in like a basement. Please, like, don't sell it on the secondary market. Please just have it in your house and support me as an artist. Like, and just, you know, that, I mean, those are my fears. Like my biggest fears are like, no one's ever going to see it, or you're trying to like flip it. That's like, you know, like that's terrifying. Which I didn't even know until, you know, I didn't know anything about that stuff until like kind of the last year and a half. So, I mean, I will say very, like when I'm thinking about my work, I'm thinking about Black people. Like this, it's like, this is like, it's for everyone, but like the, like at the heart, it's like for us, by us. Like I want Black people to like see it and be like, oh yes, like I see myself and I feel loved and I feel honored and I feel like exalted, you know? And so like, obviously anyone can buy my work, but I love when Black people have my work, and I've been very fortunate to like sort of the more unique pieces have been like placed in with Black collectors. And it's like, again, buy my work, support artists, please. But that is really important to me and really wonderful. And so I'm also, you know, I also, if you feel like, right, this is what you're asking me. Am I answering the question? Yeah.
100%.
Okay. If you feel like anyone else, like I want you to again, like also see it as this, like, this is like when the pieces are like the big pieces that no one's buying yet, but like the large pieces, like I want you to feel like you've entered like a space, like a sacred space, you know, and that's really, like, it doesn't matter the scale, actually, it could be large or small, but I want you to feel that energy. And so it's like, whoever's like down to do that and really pay respect to this piece, then like you can have my work. That's my dream. Again, like when someone with a gallery, they have their collectors. I don't know, you know, like the hope is that they're really like vetting their collectors, and they know that they're like really, you know, gonna really respect the work. But like I don't have one that like even now I don't have full control. I mean, I do have control. You have control, but I also want to survive financially. So it's like, I can't be like, well, are you gonna, you know, I mean, I could, and I respect when people do that, but like, I hope that they are, they feel that reverence for the work already. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Yeah. And I feel like once you're in the space with the work, your intentionality is going to come through, and you're going to feel that transcendental experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's exciting. And lastly, you know, what's next for you? What do you see? How do you see going forward?
Well, I'm hoping that like a bunch of big residencies are going to come through. That would be really, like, speaking of career and like propelling me. So that is like put some magic on that. And then I have some shows, and I have a solo show happening in the fall or late summer, and then another one happening next year. Again, sorry, I mean, it's like very New York State centric, but and just, I mean, I have a lot of work. It's funny. I have two projects I'm thinking about. It's funny, I was like talking about like the work being the world's being elsewhere, right, and not existing on this earth, except for the ocean ones are very much, or the Earth's ocean, until I think about other planets' oceans or whatever. But there are some pieces I have in mind that I want to start to kind of flesh out that are specific to the planet Earth, and like things happening like land side or whatever, Earth side or whatever, you know, like that. So those beings kind of existing in that world. So here on this planet, within our history, like our timeline that we know now. So that's something, if that makes sense. And then I have another project that like maybe a book that I'm thinking about, not like a visual, like not like a minimal text, but like there's definitely that's something that I'm thinking about as well. But it could be 2 years from now, so don't like quote me on that or wait around for it. But if you pay attention, you'll find out.
Something that just popped into my head, and I don't know if you have any interest in this, is like that whimsical nature of, like, I don't know, tarot cards. Like there's always these.
Oh yeah.
So as a way to kind of give your portfolio the ability to be owned by.
That's like more accessible.
Yes,
totally.
Yeah,
absolutely. That's a really great idea. I definitely absolutely want to think about that, and like the way, again, because it's so inaccessible, like the art world and market and all of that. I love that idea. or something like that. That is like,
Yeah,
that,
the
like,
book.
yeah, that you like can have and you know, totally.
Thank you so much for doing the talk today. I really
Yeah,
appreciated getting to discuss your work and
thank you.
sharing with the Questa students. Courtney, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you all so much. That was incredible. And as I said in the intro, this is our last laboratory series. Thank you, Nicola and Alisa, so much. That work is beautiful. I echo, I want a big coffee table book now of all of that. That'll be a perfect addition to my decor here. I want to give a huge shout out to Natalie out there on the back end. Natalie, a Race Matters volunteer, has nurtured this this art series for the past year. This is our 11th, so we had one per month through this whole pandemic, and she's put so much intention and care into volunteering to put this together. I want to thank Race Matters volunteer Stephanie, and also Emma Saperstein, formerly of the Harold J. Millay Gallery, now at our local Museum of Modern Art. And so we're excited for more collaborations there. We'd love to see both of you here in Slowtown. That would be great. Maybe we can have a residency for you here, Alisa. We can. And Nicola, you're a little closer to us here, so we'd love to have you as well. So thank you both again. Thank you to for all your questions out there in the audience, and thanks again to Natalie, Stephanie, and Emma. And signing off. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you, Nicola. Thank you, everyone, for your questions. Take care.